Hey everybody, this is my 55-gallon tank, and I wanted to talk about a couple of things in this tank this morning. I just got the lights turned on, and one of the things I want to talk about was that I saw my little South American bumblebee catfish for the first time since I've put it in this tank. I didn't see it directly when I turned the lights on, and I've never been able to find out where it's hiding. I get in there and I look in all the little nooks and crannies as best I can, and I never see it. And so this morning, a little while after the lights had been on, I glanced in here and I noticed it scurrying across the bottom of the tank down at the far end, and it sort of wrapped around the back side there and went back around this way. And so I'm assuming it's hiding back here underneath of these rocks or something, but I did see it. It is still in there and it is still doing well. I also wanted to note that I've got a couple of, or at least one, diamond tetra right there that seems to have a swim bladder issue. You see how it's constantly kind of swimming? It's got its nose pointed up. It's almost like it's swimming to stay in the water column, and if it stopped swimming it would just drift to the bottom and lay on the bottom. That's probably exactly what would happen. I've had this happen with skirt tetras in the past. I've had a few skirt tetras that had swim bladder issues. Swim bladder issues can be one way or the other. They can overinflate, and then that makes the fish sort of float around at the top and can't swim down into the water column. Or they can have issues where they can't inflate it, and it's the opposite effect. They will actually sink if they don't continually swim. Now, in my experience, the fish can live a fairly long, reasonably normal life in this condition. They just have to swim constantly, and they probably require a little extra food because they're burning more energy and all that sort of thing. But I've had skirt tetras live for a couple years constantly having to swim like that, whereas when the fish gets the inflated swim bladder and they seem to float up around the top, I've never had a fish survive more than a few weeks from that point on. So I'm not too concerned about this little diamond tetra. In addition to that, there's nothing I could really do about it anyway, so there, you know, it's just I'm kind of pointing out that that's what's going on. There's nothing I can really do. There's no meds that I can think of for it or anything else. So that's just what it is. The other thing I've been considering this morning is possibly moving the angelfish out of this tank. I have not yet seen any clear indication that the fish is being harassed by the tetras. There's no nips on the fins. I've not actually witnessed the behavior, but you can see how the angelfish just always tends to hide and lay low, and it stays down near the bottom and it stays behind things. I always kind of thought it was being sketchy around me, which is sort of unusual because most angelfish are pretty outgoing and they come right up to the glass when the owner walks in. They think they're going to get fed. This one doesn't act that way. This one always seems to be a little on the shy and skeptical side. And again, I always assumed it was me. But I was watching from the doorway this morning and the fish didn't even know I was there, and it's acting the same way. It almost seems like it's kind of creeping around the tank in an attempt to avoid this group of tetras. So whether they're actually doing any harm to him or not, I don't know. But the fish seems to be wary of them and doesn't seem to like being in their presence or whatever. So I'm thinking about putting that in a new tank. The only problem, of course, is I have no idea which tank I would put it in. I'm considering my gourami tank. I had an angelfish in there before, and I never had any issues with it. And so we might do that. The angelfish that I had in there is that enormous one that I've now got in my 125, and that's kind of the reason I took it out of there. It was so big that it really didn't even fit in a 55. It's the biggest angelfish I've ever had. So this angelfish would probably go okay in my gourami tank. It's already in a 55, and it does just fine. So maybe if it had some different tank mates, it might do a little better. So there's that. And finally, I wanted to point out that I think something in this tank, possibly the pleco, is eating cyanobacteria. I had actually planned this weekend to do a video showing everybody that for once I finally got that green cyanobacteria in this tank, and you can still see it, and you can even still see it on the rocks to some degree. Get a good look at the angelfish for a minute there. But as of last night, this whole corner had a sheet of that bright green stuff growing across the bottom. My regular viewers will know what my little 20-gallon angelfish tank looks like. It gets that sort of green carpet across the bottom, and it's really, really bright green. Well, again, you can see a little bit of it back sort of across the back edge of that rock, and of course we can see that stuff right there, and again, there is still a little bit left on the rocks. So something came through here and cleaned all that up. And I was under the impression that nothing eats that cyanobacteria. So it's possible that there was little of it enough that the pleco just ate it and it was all just mixed in with whatever else it was scraping up and it wound up just eating it anyway. But usually once you get that green layer over everything, any kind of algae scraping fish, whether you got a pleco or like a rubber lip or something like that, a bristlenose, they simply won't eat that bright green stuff. Now, that kind of green stuff, they'll get on the glass and they'll scrape that. That's just algae growing on the glass. That's a very, very different kind of green than this bright green stuff. And it's interesting because I have it in this tank too. I have it in a lot of my tanks. And it almost looked like it had sort of bled over and was just sort of like running from one tank into the next. Now, I've pointed out many, many times over the years, I don't treat my fish room like a surgery. You know, I don't sterilize all my equipment from one tank to the next. I regularly will pull the siphon out of one tank and put it right into the next and just do water change after water change after water change around the room. So, again, the fact that it took so long for me to finally start seeing some of that green stuff showing up in this tank, I've always found surprising. It was still a little disappointing when I did see it show up, and it is clearly still in there. But something is cleaning it up and keeping it clean enough that I'm not too worried about it. So, tank still needs a water change, some basic maintenance, got to get in there. You can see I got some dead leaves on my Anubias. The Anubias really needs to be cut back. I'm getting to the point where I'm thinking about sort of revamping this tank. I'm getting kind of tired of looking at the two giant clumps of Anubias and nothing else really. So I might thin the Anubias way back, maybe add some other plants, maybe change the fish up a little bit. I don't know, we'll see. But there's just a spur of the moment update on my 55. Had a few things going on in there I wanted to mention, so I wanted to talk about that while they were fresh on the mind. And I did. And I don't know if you all noticed while we've been shooting this video, but I have seen a bunch of those diamond tetras drifting in and out of that Anubias, and that's where they breed. They get together, they go into the bushes, they do their thing, and then they come back out, leaving some hopefully fertilized eggs behind in the dense vegetation. And if that's the case, maybe we'll get some that survive. I have had 4 that survived, but that's all I've ever seen. I had 4 babies in there one time, and that's all I've ever seen. So hopefully we'll get some more of those one day, because that is really exciting. I really, really like these diamond tetras a lot. So there you go, everybody. There's my brief morning update on my 55. Sorry for the odd angle, but my waterfall tank is here in the way, and I can't stand directly in front of the tank anymore. So thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed, and I will see you real soon in the next one.